Reading the Bible seems like an easy task. Open Bible, read, think about it. But there's a method that's been developed over the centuries that is reliable and helpful. Let's take a look at it. So you've got your Bible with you. Fantastic. What do you know about it? Do you know any historical information about the particular book or letter you're about to read? It's always good to have some background info. This is readily available online or in some study Bibles at the beginning of each book or letter. Before you dig in, get a refresher on whether this book was written pre- or post-exile, or whether Paul was in a particular town or prison when he wrote the letter. Next, armed with historical knowledge, sally forth and read the whole thing in one sitting. Okay, let me clarify. When I say read the whole thing, I don't mean cover to cover. Say you have the letter Paul wrote to the Ephesians. It's a letter, so we don't often read a paragraph or two of a letter and then set it aside for tomorrow. When we get a letter, we read the whole thing in one sitting. That way we get what the writer is trying to say overall, instead of picking bits here and there. How much sense would a letter from your father make if you started mid-letter and only read a paragraph or two? Sure, you'd have some information, but how does it fit in with the whole idea? Especially since the 2 paragraphs you read included a new lawnmower and something about a neighbor going to the hospital. But what about the really big books, you ask? Well, read a whole story. Genesis is a huge book, but it's broken up into stories about particular individuals. So read Abraham's whole story, or Jacob's, or Judah's. That way you see how God impacted their whole lives and not just that one time when that thing happened. Then take a few minutes and think. Ask 2 questions. What does this story or passage say about God or Jesus? And why is it important that I know this story or passage? If you have any questions about the passage you read, go back and read it again. If you still have questions, find a good, reliable commentary. The Interpretation series and the Old and New Testament for everyone are good starting points. Commentaries are not a be-all, end-all of what the passage is about, though. They are literally someone commenting to the best of their knowledge on what the passage means and how to apply it. The reason this method works is that it takes into account the whole story or the whole structure of a letter. Too often we're tempted to take a verse or two and use that for everything, regardless of context. Sometimes this can help, but often it leads to confusion. Take Philippians 4:13 in the New King James Version, for example. I can do anything through Christ who strengthens me. How inspiring, right? But let's take a look at the context starting in verse 10. But I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at last your care for me has flourished again, though you surely did care, but you lacked opportunity. Not that I speak in regard to need, for I have learned in whatever state I am to be content. I know how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I have learned both to be full and hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. In context, it's not about doing something, it's more about enduring all things. Still inspiring, just not quite in the same way. So go out there and explore what all the Bible has in store for you. It's an exciting, adventurous ride, and I wish you all the best.